Digital identity has been established as one of the most significant technology trends on the planet. It's a set of validated digital attributes and credentials for the digital world, similar to a person's identity for the real world. Usually issued or regulated by a national ID scheme, a digital identity serves to uniquely identify a person online or offline. Although your physical identity and your digital identity are different, the concepts are the same. Both need to be protected. You need to ensure that you are not providing your information to people, systems, or websites that cannot be trusted. The concept of digital identity might sound complex, but it's quite easy to grasp. It's essentially any personal data existing online that can be traced back to the real you. More like an extended identity card or passport containing almost the same information. A digital identity is more than your login credentials. It consists of thousands of data points that make up a profile of who you are and your preferences. Today, your digital identity is scattered all over the internet. Where social media owns our social identity, retailers own our shopping patterns, credit agencies hold our credit worthiness, your bank owns your payment history. As a result, we are all analyzed in detail to predict our future behavior and monetize our digital identities. In a world where more applications and services are being offered by different service providers, more people and organizations are facing the same problems when it comes to digital identities. Hence the need for a better way for your digital identity to follow you. Our guest is Monique Morrow, president of the Vettery Foundation and co-founder of the Humanized Internet, and she shares her thoughts on how individuals can secure and stay in control of their digital identities.
Monique, glad to have you on the show today.
It's a pleasure to be here, Fred. It's a pleasure to be on your show.
Let's look at connectivity as it is today.
Yep.
What are some of the danger signs that you see with the way the internet is evolving?
I think the way the internet is evolving right now is there are things we have to pay attention to. Is one, from the business perspective, is what I will call ethical use of the internet. You know, what are our ethics? How do we use that? Technology is not, has no agency, so it's mainly about the ethical use. One of the alarming things that I am seeing is how the internet is. How people are abusing the internet to abuse others. If you think about it, if I don't like you, I could actually put a picture about you and say that you were doing bad things to other people. So that's the thing that we have to pay attention to, is the abuse of the internet, or using the internet for abuse, using the internet for abuse against people. I'm paying attention to cyber mobbing, with children involved, which is very important. Parents need to be involved with their kids on responsible use of the internet. What happens is that the way children use the internet, especially with the mobile phone, they could actually, we were all teenagers once. We all know that space very well. And it's hard, right? And so, when you were bullied, unfortunately, people get bullied. But now it's a terrible thing that's being done with these tools. And what happens is that, what we're seeing is that a high rate of suicide amongst teenagers, particularly. I mean, that depends on the geography, but it's something to pay attention to.
Interesting. I mean, everything you just said now are, they are happening already. These are real challenges, but I mean, it begs the question why, what needs to happen. What are some of your thoughts on the way forward?
Oh, that's a great question, Fred. I mean, because it's a dynamic look. It's a problem that starts, or a problem. There are areas that we have to think about. What is it? How is it in your home? If you think about it, Steve Jobs, and Bill Gates never allowed their children to have phones until they were young adults, quote unquote. And there was a reason for that, right? Because it was, how were you going to protect them from, once you're in that cyberspace, you're in the cyberspace. And so it's one area. So what do you do at home? Number one. And I think that's one. Number two is businesses. That's one aspect. The technology companies have to define responsible use. I mean, that's where everybody's looking at it. As you can think, if you smoke a pack of cigarettes, they say, well, these cigarettes could cause cancer. You can say, well, this is how the technology was defined for responsible use, And I think the third thing is doing what we're doing today is through your super podcast, an interview is to get people aware, to have that sense of awareness of what the potential abuse can be. And that means also looking at how you use privacy, how you use these tools, Instagram, and so on. The thing you have to be cognizant of is once you're on the internet, now, you choose to be, right? Well, once you're on the internet, whether it's through all of these wonderful technologies, Instagram, and whatever your favorite tool is to show and have a dialogue, you can never remove yourself. It's forever and ever and ever and ever there. And so, you have to think about when you're going for a job interview, people will actually start looking at Instagram, they'll start looking at what you were doing in Facebook, and they start looking at that and going, well, you say, well, yeah, but I was young then. And they're kind of thinking, so it's like, it's that, because it's wonderful. Don't get me wrong. No, Fred, it's a wonderful tool. So much is happening. And with COVID, look at how you and I are connecting. Yeah. It would have been great, to have traveled and to have met you face to face, whether, we meet in Lagos or wherever we meet, and I've been invited many times to on the continent, but we can't anymore. And right now, because of the way we have this pandemic. And if anything, this pandemic has done is promoted more and more use of the internet. And so that's a thing that we have to now be really cognizant of. Yeah.
All right, Monique, my final question, because time is never...
It's never a final question, Fred.
With blockchain, with robotics, with AI, how complicated do you see data privacy becoming, for example?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. Well, all of these, when you think about the Internet of Things and things and things, everything exudes data. We are just pulsating data. You wear an Apple Watch or whatever watch you're wearing, you're pulsating data. So privacy becomes a very major topic. I'm also involved with the World Economic Forum on data policy on privacy, because here's the thing. You should be able to control where your data is going and for what purpose. And that flips the discussion a bit. You could have a health problem and your data is going to insurance companies or for other research, and you don't know it. This is what they call self-sovereign identity. I think the privacy issue is one that we need to resolve for. It's not just having privacy laws in place. It's more or less how, because we have compliance. Companies will look at compliance, and companies will look at risk. And countries. I think even Kenya's, for example, in Kenya, they're looking at adopting very similar privacy laws like in Europe, like this whole notion of GDPR. But I think we need to go beyond the laws. I think we have to think about how do you or should you control the data? And people will say, well, you can never control the data. I said, well, you could probably think about what is transparent and around how that data flows. And I think we need to have much more of a discussion on that. And, if somebody is some entity is in the background looking at your data and monetizing your data, and you're not knowing, and you're not part of the monetization process, you'd like to be, but you're not. Wouldn't you like to be? So this topic, we can continue this topic. And for your listeners and viewers, There's a lot of things that have to happen in this one.
The Monique, I'm sure we'll come back to this again, but thank you for being on the show today. Keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you so much, Fred. Pleasure.